on Seattle? Do you know who's right over there? The jokes are over. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Hiddleston!
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay? I just want to say I've met so many of you over the last 3 days, and it's been so lovely to hear all your messages, and some of you give me letters. I haven't read them yet. I haven't had the time. But thanks for coming, and thanks for showing up, and it's lovely to see you all.
Pretty great, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things, you guys worked so hard on movie sets for many, many months. You meet the crew and the cast, but you don't get to see the fans like this. This is a different experience for you. It's like being Bono.
It's always special. I mean, all of us think. By the way, I send apologies from my brother from another mother, Chris Hemsworth, who's hard at work. But we always talk about on the set how these movies don't exist without the audience, and I've been doing this for a while now, and the pleasure, I think, is that the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe feels like a family, and that you guys are as invested in it as much as we are, and this is it's cool.
It's such a tribute to what Kevin Feige and Lou D'Esposito and all the Marvel folks have put together, and for you, dating back to Thor, back when I met you, when you were making the first Thor film, they say that the most important thing in a hero movie is the villain, and how great is it that you could hold the screen, like in the first Avengers movie, there's a lot of heroes in that movie, there's only one bad guy, and he's the best bad guy.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. It's been a roller coaster, that's for sure.
And let's talk a little bit about the most recent film.
Yeah.
It was very hard seeing you expire on the screen. There was a tough moment, but it was a wonderfully acted scene, and there was something very special in it because, as we were talking backstage, you identified yourself for the first time.
Yes. So I've known about that scene for 2 years. And I first was. I went to see Kevin Feige and Lou D'Esposito at Marvel in May of 2016, and they were actually telling me the story of Ragnarok, and they had concept art and images and a script, and the Russos came in, and I was introduced to them, and all four of them sat me down and said, "So this is how Infinity War begins," and. So my whole journey through making Ragnarok, I knew this was coming, and it was so that by the end of Ragnarok, Loki's been accepted as Thor's brother again, as his friend, his ally. And I found it when I came to shoot the scene in Infinity War, I think it's very powerful that he calls himself an Odin son. And that closes the whole journey of Loki and what we were trying to do. Kenneth Branagh, with Ken Branagh introduced these two characters as two princes in Asgard, both of whom were born to be together in a way. And in that film, he finds out he's not an Odin son by birth, but the fact that he looks his brother in the eye and says, "I'm an Odin son," is a huge journey of redemption and catharsis. And so it's a powerful scene. I knew that actually the scene was instructive and important in the film because it sets the stakes up emotionally. It sets the stakes up dramatically. You know that Thanos is someone who's more dangerous than anyone we've seen before. And the Russos, and we knew it was going to be a heavy scene to start with, but I think it brings you straight into the story, and you're invested from the get-go.
Stakes are so high.
The stakes are so high.
Yeah, and it really is fascinating. I mean, if you think back, with the great line that Chris got to deliver, "He's adopted." It was such a great comedic moment. And in this moment, he was no longer adopted; he was a brother.
Yeah, he was his brother. He dies saving his brother.
Yeah, sacrifice.
Yeah, which I think
First sacrifice.
Yeah. So there's a sort of, I don't know, if I think back to my preparation for the first Thor film, there's a kind of symmetry in that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Ken Branagh, who I'm such a huge fan of on almost every level, just as a person, as a filmmaker, as an actor. I mean, he's done so many extraordinary things. And, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember him telling me once that you and Chris ended up in a pool fight, a swimming pool? The first time you met?
We never fought in the pool, I just want to clarify that.
He said you guys wrestled.
We didn't wrestle, no, we never wrestled.
Okay.
No, I remember it very clearly, and Chris does too. We were cast in the film, and Chris and myself and Natalie Portman went down to see Ken for the weekend in England at his house in London. And while Ken and Natalie were having an initial conversation about Jane Foster, what she did for a living, who she was, Ken said to me and Chris, "You guys should go and train together." And so we were dispatched to lift logs, and we went for a jog and did a little stretching, and then after about 10 minutes we were like, let's just go swimming. And it was in that moment, because I'd only just met him that morning, that we kind of looked at each other and broke into a smile and felt like we'd won the lottery. And we were two kids being packed off on this great adventure. And we've been friends ever since, and it has been the most incredible ride.
And he's a hell of a guy. I mean, he's
really great. Yeah,
just a great.
And I think he's terrific in Infinity War as well.
He really is. Absolutely. Now, and with Ken, I know that you knew Ken before that. You had worked on Wallander, a great show.
Yep.
It's a great show. If you guys haven't seen it, if you're looking for a TV series that maybe dip into, I saw it on Masterpiece Theater.
That's right. Yeah.
And you had a supporting role in that, but you predate that. You had done stage work with Ken. Is that right?
Actually, it was the same time. So it was 10 years ago exactly. We did the first series of Wallander, and we did a Chekhov play called Ivanov in the West End. And I think it was doing the play. Quite often, the nature of the live event is that you really get to sort of know someone very well, because it's the repetition and it's trying to make it better every night. And he is motivated so purely by a passion for storytelling, and he's trying to refine the writing and the action into its most truthful representation for the audience. And I loved working on that with him. And he was amazing. I mean, what he did for me and Chris in casting us was an incredible gift, an incredible act of generosity, and I owe him a great debt of gratitude.
With Loki, I'm curious, you put yourself into a character, and a little bit of the character gets into you. In a sense, when you have a sustained career with him. I mean, you've been with Loki for a while now.
Yeah.
A decade.
Yeah.
I don't think you're a trickster god. If you are, that's kind of cool. But what have you seen from this performance that has stayed with you, and what do you see in Loki that you can kind of recognize, connects to you?
I think what I've loved about it is and it has felt like a gift, is because he is such a fascinating antagonist. Anyone will tell you, any actor who's played a villain or an antagonist will tell you they're fascinating because the challenge is to present the exterior and the interior. And so the exterior, because you're the villain, it means there's something in you that is motivated by things we all feel but try to hide and suppress, like jealousy or pain or isolation or loneliness. These things can convert themselves into egomania or narcissism, all of which Loki is a part of him. But then the challenge, if the exterior is that he's trying to pit the Avengers against each other, or he's trying to work some kind of scheme, if you can allow the audience to see the vulnerability behind all of that, so that you have this internal-external relationship. And the final thing I would say is that I had to remind myself every day, he's the god of mischief, and it's my professional obligation to have a great time. So there's something I recognize a part of a very childlike part of myself in that, in like just trying to have as much fun as possible, because he is, and I also don't think he's truly evil.
I say the best villains are the ones that think that they're in the right.
But he never was. Even in the Norse mythology, in the pantheon, Loki's a very important, fascinating character. The trickster. He's somebody that the gods needed at particular times. Though I mean, lots of people are familiar with the Norse stories, but he's someone he represents chaos in opposition to order, and sometimes what you need is a bit of chaos. And
Asgard wouldn't be the same without him.
Asgard wouldn't be the same without him, yeah. So, fascinating. Yeah.
And then one of the great things that, for any actor, in talking to actors, directors are so key, and you talked a little bit about Kenneth. You've worked with some other extraordinary actors, Steven Spielberg, for instance. I remember talking to you about War Horse, and Woody Allen, and so many great directors. Maybe if you could talk about one or two that you felt they were kind of a North Star for you, or that they've really sort of helped you along your way as an actor. Who are the ones that kind of stand out?
Well, Steven Spielberg, I mean, that was, I still remember that summer making War Horse with such...
With Benedict, too.
With Benedict, yeah. Benedict and I learning how to fall off horses together. Steven, I mean, he needs no introduction from me, and being alongside his filmmaking mind was one of the great pleasures and privileges of my life. He's so detailed, and I think the thing that I suppose unites him and Guillermo del Toro or Kenneth Branagh or Susanna Bier is they have this passion for the detail, and that they understand that the magic of filmmaking is in the detail. Whether it's about something inside the frame, something inside the character, something in the story, they're all prepared enough to lead, but also flexible enough to know that if something isn't right, if a piece of the set isn't right, if a shot isn't right, if a line doesn't feel truthful, they will be flexible enough and agile enough and intelligent enough to change their minds and chase it. And so I've learned a lot from that thing of being prepared, but also being flexible and agile, to be like, does this feel true? Just to be around their passion is infectious, I think.
And Steven, like, he won't even start a film until the script is completely locked, and that's so different than a lot of Hollywood's approach these days. A lot of, movies, one of the Men in Black movies, they didn't know how the movie was going to end, and they started filming.
Yeah.
But like Steven, and that preparation allows him to be nimble in the moment, right?
Yeah. I also think Steven, he just is a master.
Yeah.
And I don't use that word lightly.
And so generous.
So generous, but I think you see his generosity in his work.
Yeah.
You can't watch a Spielberg film and not feel his innate warmth coming from the story.
There's nothing cold there.
No, he's a very, very warm-hearted person.
So, and then, is there another director you would point to? I know Ragnarok was an amazing experience.
Yeah, Ragnarok was great. I mean, it's just being next to Taika Waititi for a day.
Seems like a character. He's fantastic.
He's great, and so free and so fun, and he, in a way, he just put a lot of new bells and whistles on everything, and brought his own particular sense of humor to it, and made it so fun, and really embraced all the Jack Kirby stuff, and wanted to make it colorful and light-hearted and silly in a way.
Flash Gordon film, it feels like that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I remember reading the scene when Loki turns up in the, whatever it is, the Sanctorum in Doctor Strange's house. And, I've been falling for 30 minutes. It's just a very kind of like, this very sort of Taika read on a situation. Who else? I mean, I've worked with some great directors. I worked for Jim Jarmusch, who I think is
Amazing
a
talent.
true artist.
A true singular talent.
Yeah.
His films look different than anybody else's.
And also Susanna Bier, who directed The Night Manager. Unbelievable, very, very honest and intelligent Danish director. And she, she was interesting because she took something. John le Carré's book is about Englishness. It's about something very complex at the heart of English identity. And her perspective as a Dane, in a way, was, and also she's just so clever, was that she was able to sort of see things in a different way and challenge us to do different things in a different way. But really, it's just this thing of agility. I mean, agility, I'll sort of break that down for you. Agility on the day. You're on the set.
Serendipity.
Yeah, you're losing the light. The sun is going down. You've only got 3 hours to get the scene. And the quality of calmness to see what the truth is, to say this is what the scene needs. And maybe it means changing everything and getting rid of a sofa, or bringing a new one in, or moving a scene from a bedroom to a kitchen because it feels more honest, or saying actually the lines don't work anymore, we should try and find something that's more true. And that's what she brought to it, which I think is why, if it felt this way, why The Night Manager felt like it had this edge of your seat quality to it.
It's a clarity of vision. There's a real confidence in it, isn't it? One of my favorite scenes in any Marvel movie is when Hulk basically smashes you. I was wondering, that must have hurt.
I mean, I didn't do all of it. No, I still remember it very fondly because it was always in the script, and throughout the course of the first Avengers, Loki is given so much status and so much power, and in that one split second, he loses all of it. And when I first saw a kind of animatic composite of it, and I think I've told this story before, but Mark Ruffalo's son Keen was on the set, and it made him laugh so much. I thought this is going to work. And then when it came to the day, actually it was just me jumping into trenches in the set, which felt insane. But it worked.
Yeah. Well, it has such almost like a Looney Tunes, the velocity and impact it has.
Yeah, I mean, he deserves it at that point.
Yeah. Well, you wear it well.
Yeah.
Because you're very haughty.
You don't call the Hulk a dull creature and get away unscathed.
If Steven Spielberg is the epitome of preparation and structure, and then finding magic in it, is Robert Downey Jr. the epitome of a genie in the bottle, or does he have some of the same thing? I mean, there seems to be so much, not ad lib, but there's so much openness to finding new things. But is that preparation as well?
Well, I think Robert comes very, very prepared, but he's also so intensely alive. And so that vitality on the set is what you see in what he does as Tony Stark. And, he again, it's this thing of agility. He's almost like a dancer in that he's always light. And a lot of the funny jokes and the one-liners he comes up with, but it's more that thing of, he understands that the thing that's interesting on camera is life, as opposed to preparation, as opposed to like the hard work you've done. That he knows what people enjoy seeing, and what is interesting to watch is something happening before your eyes as it's happening. And so the reason he's so spontaneous, I think, is he understands that that's the magic. And it is as an actor, you need a mixture of freedom and discipline to be able to do that. And I think Robert has got, if I can say this, got better and better and better as Tony Stark. He was amazing the first time, but he is the elder statesman of this MCU, and none of us would be here without him. And the performances have got incredibly emotional, I think, and vulnerable. And you start to see that he feels sometimes overwhelmed by the things he has to take on, and you really read that.
And that's the secret sauce in Marvel films in general. I think is the human heart that's beating because the CG, you look at spectacle films. I mean, I love The Matrix, I love the Star Wars films, I love the Star Trek films, but things can feel flat after a while, or you can be overwhelmed by all the things that are happening on the screen. But in the Marvel films, like it comes down to most of these characters are driven by alienation or affliction. They didn't choose to be heroes, or if they are a hero, they don't wear it well, or they're a guy that's everybody he knows has died 30 years earlier, or a kid that got bit by a bug, or a guy who's the ultimate rageaholic. They're not necessarily golden ideals, and I think that's the reason that everybody's here. I think that is because we care about them.
Well, I think that comes from Kevin Feige. I think he innately understands that what is the most compelling, the center of these films is human drama. And sometimes it's comedy, but it all comes from the humanity of the people you're watching. And they're some of the guys I've worked with and the way they've actually pushed the form of visual effects is dazzling. You work with some people, time and time again, like I worked with some visual effects artists on Ragnarok who I'd worked with on the first Thor film, and they had taken their own work on by so many leaps and bounds because they'd been allowed to, because there was the material to work on. But Kevin always insists that they can't do anything unless there's humanity at the center of the frame. And I think that's why Marvel has kind of got this secret ingredient in a way, is that they understand that humanity is the thing that connects all of us. That's why you're all here, I think. Certainly why I'm here.
It's kind of a silly question, maybe, but if Loki had a Walkman or a playlist, what kind of music do you think Loki would be? I mean, when you're getting into performance, is there a soundtrack in your head? It's a silly question. I'm not sure if there's an answer.
I don't know. I mean, I've listened to different things over the years. It honestly, it depends on what I'm listening to. I'm not that disciplined about Loki's music, but what was that? We have Shakira on the left.
Eminem?
Could have been, I don't know. It's something with a tempo, something that's something upbeat, something light. Could have been that too. We have Will Smith from the center.
Getting jiggy with it? I don't know.
There was a lot of, I remember at San Diego Comic Con a couple of years ago, there was a lot of Daft Punk. I feel like that's up history.
Wow, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Roger that. And then, what was going way back, if you recall, the first day on the set of the first film? Do you remember what the first?
I do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
The first day, my first day ever as Loki was with Chris as Thor, and we were on Jotunheim in that film, and we were playing the scene with Colm Feore as Laufey, the confrontation with Laufey, where Laufey is dismissive of Thor's arrogance and hubris, and Loki gets a sense that this is a fight they might not win, and maybe they shouldn't be here, and he's trying to encourage his brother to think before he acts. But they also feel very together, very connected, that they are two halves of the same whole. And yeah, day one. And it's exciting to look back on it actually, because the first shot of the two of Chris and the first shot of me was the same shot. It was a two-shot from Colm's perspective as we were looking up at the first, he's the king of the frost giants. And this is obviously before Loki discovers the truth of his lineage, but he still has some sense that something isn't quite right. We'd done a lot of prep as well. We'd done so much work. Chris and I were working for about 9 months with Ken on what this relationship was. We worked with Anthony Hopkins on the relationship with our father, with Rene Russo on the relationship with Frigga, and costume fittings, and the excitement of trying to bring to life the panels in these costumes, and actually wearing the costume for the first time, and him with his wig on and me with my black hair. So it was, it's fun to look back on, a long time ago now.
And, is there, the job is to feel comfortable and authentic in those moments, but it's tough to wear horns, isn't it?
The horns have their own story. Initially I just, the helmet was so tight I couldn't hear anything. So I'd be in a scene with people and I'd be like, I'm sorry, what was that? Which does kind of takes the sting out of Loki's hubris, I think. Could you speak up a bit? No, honestly, it was exciting. And it's exciting to step into these big costumes. And also Ken understood, as an actor, that it can be almost alienating and isolating to be standing on a mark, surrounded by green screen, with nothing to feed your imagination. So he tried to build as many of the sets practically as he could. He built the palace in Asgard. He built the ice planet. And he was very, very... he had a loudspeaker and he would always be calling things out to get a live reaction from us, because also he understands what you want is a live response.
And do you think, with your stage background, on stage, you're perceiving things that other people can't perceive. Do you think that was a natural asset for you once you got into this sort of CG acting?
Maybe. Acting, acting is kind of like, it is, as I've said before, an act of imagination. And you have to risk, you have to sort of, when a director calls action, you have to imagine you are somewhere else. And that's a muscle you flex wherever you are as an actor, whether you're making a short film or whether you're on stage or whether you're doing a CG thing. And
Ladies and gentlemen, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
It's the new TH.
Tom Holland. Hello, Tom.
What you have now is what's known as TH squared.
We got Tom as well.
So I just finished my day and I saw you on stage, so I thought I'd come and join you.
Thanks, buddy.
You're just glad Anthony Mackie's not here. He got so much grief last night.
No, it was all fun and games. It got a little bit hairy at one point, but it was all fun and games. So it's all good. Mackie and I are still friends.
He's a great guy. You should have seen it. They were giving him a hard time, but lovingly.
Oh, this is a thing this goes way back, right? To Civil War?
It goes way back. I don't know where it came from. And it was funny because the first time I ever saw any Mackie and Sebastian hate towards me, I thought it was real. Because I just saw like a tweet like, Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie roast Tom Holland. I was like, what have I done? But it's a joke. We're all friends really, so don't worry about it.
Oh, he's a prince. He's a good guy. He's a great guy. Super talented. So how was your day, Tom?
My day was great. My day meeting all you guys was lovely. It's been really fun. It's been a really great con. Yeah.
It's fantastic. And we were talking a little earlier about the esprit de corps of the Marvel Universe and the cast. And I've been lucky enough to be on 4 Marvel sets, and it's real. Like, it's not something that people just say for the press release. I mean, there seems to be a real togetherness, and I guess that speaks again to Kevin Feige and the directors and stuff. Is that true? Do you feel that way?
Well, the Spider-Man stuff isn't real. Yeah, I can't actually swing from building to building. I'd love to be able to do that.
Well, I've seen you do that.
I thought it was real.
I've seen you do backflips.
I mean, there's elements of it that are real, and some of the stuff that our stunt doubles do is incredible. I don't know if you guys remember from Spider-Man Homecoming, there's a scene where Spider-Man is thrown into a school bus, and then the shocker punches it, and it flips. Now, my stunt double, Dave, who we call Crash Dummy Dave, he was just so tough, literally stood inside of a school bus, no pads on, nothing, and they just flipped it. I think it was 7 times it span on this special rig, and he just ping-balled around, and then he came out and we were like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Do you want to do it again?" It's your funeral, dude. Go ahead.
No, I was saying the friendships are real, not the special.
Friendships are real.
The esprit de corps.
Right, yeah, they're super real. Everyone's great friends, you know. I mean, these guys have been there since the beginning, so there's this sort of foundation, this family that was sort of started, was built, and then the family tree is just growing and growing and growing. So I'm like the grandchild,
Yeah.
and you're like the grandfather.
That's nice.
I'll take it.
Tom, what do you think is, villains are so key. If you look at the history of film, we look at Darth Vader, we look at Terminator, all the villains are who we remember in movies, the Joker. What do you think is so great about Loki? Why is it that Loki's been able to hold
Everything.
so much?
Do you know, I was saying this to Tom the other day. We were on the same flight out here. I don't think there is a villain out there that is as beloved as Loki. I mean, Darth Vader wouldn't give as good an interview, would he?
He's not
It'd
fun.
be so boring.
It's not fun at all, and that asthma thing.
Yeah.
It's distracting.
Take away the mic. But no, I think Loki, has had of all the characters, maybe one of the most interesting arcs because his arc changes so quickly. You never know. Even I didn't know. Well, I know I don't know a lot.
I didn't know either.
But no, it's an amazing character that's evolved so much through the years, and I mean, your scene in Avengers, man, that really got me big time. It was a sad one. He didn't want to go.
He did go, at least he went for the head though.
That's right.
Yeah, you did.
That's right.
You
And
did.
you killed Coulson, too. Agent Coulson. Kinda.
Well,
Not very well.
He's kind of still around.
I thought you killed
I
him.
feel like you do get off quite light for the whole New York thing. You do get off quite light for that. I did forget about that whole. I'm gonna watch Avengers 1 again.
There are Infinity Stones in Avengers 1.
Yeah, but we didn't know about that till later.
I did.
Was the first time we see Thanos?
Put it this way.
Credits.
If Loki hadn't come down to Earth in Avengers 1, there would have been no reason for the Avengers to assemble.
And if you go back to the comic books, Avengers #1, 1962, Loki he tricks the Hulk into attacking a train, and the other heroes gather to capture the Hulk. Loki's the catalyst that creates the Avengers.
So
But
when
also, you are kind of talking about like attacking New York, dropping a nuke. Like, we could have done without that.
He's got his bad days.
Was I gonna? I don't know.
No, but a question. So the first ever time we see Thanos,
Yeah.
in the
Post-credits.
post-credit scene, is that Josh?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
way from the beginning, they knew that he was.
Yeah.
God, he must have been chomping at the bit by the time they got to filming his.
I know, he's sitting there.
Waiting in the
You've been
wing.
casted in a film 10 years later. You're like, when am I gonna shoot this thing?
No wonder he was so tough to beat.
Yeah, I mean, he's been training.
There was a fascinating question, I guess an obvious question I didn't think of when Josh was on Colbert. He says, all I'm doing is culling the herd. I'm thinning. There's all these resources. The universe is too full, so I just cut the population in half. I'm a good guy. And Colbert says, well, you could have just doubled the resources. Oh. Well, I
That
didn't
is
think of
so true.
that. I didn't even think of that. So now Thanos,
Obviously, Thanos didn't either.
he needed some advice.
Yeah, Thanos. You could have told him. You know him. Come on, Loki.
I don't know if he'd have listened to me after Avengers 1.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I tried.
You lost credibility with him.
I kind of did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was great. Did you work with Josh? You did, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. Josh had one of the hardest days I've ever seen an actor have, ever. It was the scene where Mantis is on his shoulders. I'm pulling the gauntlet with Iron Man. Star-Lord is punching him in the face. Drax is holding onto his leg. And Nebula is
And Chris,
And
Star-Lord's just yakking
he's
away.
just shouting in his face, and he's delivering this like monologue, which is super difficult. And he was doing it in a raspy voice to try and like do the whole Mantis mind thing. And he has to wear this like It's like a, how would you describe it? It's like an American football pad thing. I don't know what you call those, but it's huge.
A shoulder pad.
A shoulder pad.
This is the shoulder. This
Shoulder pad goes on
then
top.
this
Makes sense.
pad,
Makes
yeah.
sense. So yeah, he's wearing his big shoulder pads, and then he wears a helmet with a tennis ball and a picture of Thanos. And then he has all of us like hanging off of him, pulling and pushing, and he's delivering this monologue, and we did it, I think, for 2 days.
Sounds like Comic-Con.
Yeah. And it's amazing. I mean, I would have been like, guys, it's lunchtime now. Let's pick this up after lunch. But he went all the way through and was amazing.
So, when was your death scene? Was that the last thing that you filmed for the Infinity?
Yes, yeah.
I didn't know the order. If
Yes.
for some reason.
No. So
It'd be tough to do something.
Filmed it
after that.
in April last year. Yeah.
And it must have been an emotional day for you.
It was 3 days, and it was actually interesting. You know, I haven't told this story. Ebony Moore is played by an Irish actor called Tom Vaughan Lawler, who was my mentor at drama school.
No way.
And RADA, yeah, and it was, I'd never worked with him, and there we were on the set, and I was like, "Hey Tom, how's it going?" And he was like, "Oh, you've been doing this for much longer than I have." I've also thought he was great in the film.
He was so good.
And there was a really nice moment of working with him again, and Josh Brolin was having the time of his life, sincerely.
Seems like he has a lot of joy.
And he was really enjoying it. And he was enjoying the freedom. He loved working with the visual effects department and the motion capture. You know, because he did lots of tests before he shot, and I was feeding off his enthusiasm, and the Russos were incredibly generous because they knew this was the opening of their film, and they also knew the emotional weight of it, and both of them were like, "Oof, this is a big scene," and it did feel, once we started, it went very quickly, and it felt kind of. It was a big day, yeah.
A big day. 10 years, man. 10 years. Crazy, man.
The moment itself was really emotional. Like the Russos came up and they were like, respect.
Yeah.
These guys are so nice.
They're
nice.
amazing. What they've done. I mean, I
Unbelievably nice.
remember seeing The Winter Soldier.
Extraordinary.
Unbelievable.
So awesome.
Yeah, I was shooting Crimson Peak in Toronto, and I went to see Winter Soldier on its opening weekend, having obviously been in these movies, and I thought, God, wow, they've taken it on and developed it and expanded the universe, and there's more characters I care about. Yeah, they are great, those two.
And the highest average box office of any director in the history.
Oh,
it's hard not to, considering the movies they've made. One of the great luxuries that the key cast members have in any Marvel film is an incredible supporting cast. You mentioned some of the people. I mean, if you go back to Iron Man, people forget Jeff Bridges was in that. I mean, there's great.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic, but you don't hear about that. You don't necessarily think about that. I mean, Anthony Hopkins, you mentioned, Rene Russo and Thor, Skarsgård. I mean, so many people.
Yeah.
Same with Spider-Man.
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, right at the top of the list. Could you guys talk a little bit about that? And for you, with Anthony Hopkins, tell us a little bit about Tony. I've interviewed him. He goes, "Call me Tony." I'm like, I don't think I could do that. I think I could Sir Tony.
Yeah.
Maybe Sir Anthony, Sir, but.
Well, I mean, growing up, he was one of my acting heroes. But yeah, particularly The Remains of the Day was a big. I loved that film, growing up, and he is a. Everything okay?
Watch this.
I was just waving at someone. Sorry.
Point to any part of the room. Watch this.
Any part of the room.
Yeah. That's cool.
Did anyone watch England this morning? It's coming home.
It's coming home.
It's coming home.
We were up this morning watching it together.
We
Yeah.
were watching it in our pajamas, watching England together, like this on an iPad.
Yep, that's how it went.
But with Anthony Hopkins, one.
Sorry, yes.
No. With Raids of the Day, that has one of the greatest scenes I've ever seen an actor do. When Emma Thompson finds his book of poetry.
Yeah, it's stunning.
Interior.
Yeah.
Without saying a word.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the most compelling things I've ever seen.
It's well, he manages to convey the depth of. Is it Mr. Stevens? Of that man's interior life without demonstrating or explaining anything. And he's one of the great actors alive and still working today. We all, working on that film, from Kevin Feige, Ken Branagh, Chris Hemsworth, Natalie, and myself, we felt lucky to be in his company. And one of the great pleasures was watching, he'd never worked with Ken had never worked with him. They were both standing in great admiration of each other and watching them talk about their careers and hearing Tony's respect for Ken and all the things that he's done. And then, I think actually, you mentioned Stellan Skarsgård. I think, he brought so much to that first film and the second one.
Absolutely.
Such a
Seemingly
great actor.
effortless, but so much credibility just in small moments. Because a lot of times when you have special effects films, you don't get compelling supporting cast performances. And Marvel has made a trademark out of it and that doesn't get circled that often, I don't think.
Yeah, it's down to Randy Hiller and Sarah Finn. They're brilliant casting directors. And they're as much a part of the achievement of all of this as anyone else. Yeah.
Tom, I know you're a film fan as much as I am, and know the history of it, especially recent decades. When you were hanging with Keaton, did you have to say, so, Gotham City, how was that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's it.
Yeah. There's a great scene, it's not in the movie, it's cut short, where I carry the Vulture out of the flames, where he nearly died, so I rescue him. And I lay him down on the sand, and he says, I think the line was, "Why did you save me?" And I'm like, "Because I'm Spider-Man." And then he goes, "Yeah, but I'm Batman."
That's cool.
I will never forget that. I will never forget that. And he was amazing to work with, terrifying. That scene we shot in the car was so stressful.
You look scared.
Was so unbelievably stressful, and we shot it for a whole day. And as soon as you'd call cut, he was like the nicest guy ever, and you'd be talking about whatever, but then you'd call action, and then he would sort of become this villain, and I'd be like, okay, cut.
You're like, I want to go.
Yeah, I don't want to go. But yeah, no, it was amazing to work with him. But one of my favorites from Spider-Man Homecoming is Marissa Tomei. I mean,
For sure.
she is an angel and so talented. And, the challenge for us with Spider-Man Homecoming was, okay, this is the second reboot. This is the fifth movie. Sixth movie? Sixth movie. Let's make it unique. Let's make it different. How do we do that? And Marissa brought such an interesting new idea to this character we know and love so well. And it absolutely worked.
It's such a central place. She really seemed to belong in Queens.
And she really sort of made her mark as Aunt May in the film, and she's a very memorable character. And I love Marissa as well. She's so great. She's so sweet.
She's got a lot of good things going on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What's interesting about this as well is the producer of Spider-Man is a man called Eric Carroll, who's a very fine gentleman and a great producer. But he started on Thor with Ken Branagh, and he was somebody who Ken hired to, I think he's told the story himself, but he was hired to research the cinematography of space travel, because Ken was trying to think of what would the Bifrost travel, what would the traveling through the Bifrost look like? How would you want to guide audiences through the universe, through the galaxy, through the cosmos, all these stars, planets, and solar systems? And Eric put together a kind of trailer or a reel for it. And I love that now he started there, and now he's producing Spider-Man. That's how much of a family this is.
Yeah. And you would think that these would be two I mean, for characters that exist in the same, you know, stories in the same films, they could hardly be more removed. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the Prince of Asgard, you know, and a kid from Queens, you know, got bit by a bug.
Yeah.
You know,
Spider.
Spider, arachnid. Sorry, okay. I know it's an arachnid, not an insect. I know, but they still can bug you. But it's amazing how, you know, you use the word supple or nimble before, but how supple the creative teams can be, that they can exist in the things that are the most cosmic. I mean, taking us to the Rainbow Bridge, and then, you know, taking us to the alleys of Queens.
I guess that's why Kevin Feige is a genius, though. You know, I mean, it would have been very easy to just sort of keep churning out the same type of movie time and time again. But if you look at Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man, 3 very different movies. If you look at the last 5 years of movies, you've got Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, and Doctor Strange. Now, me personally...
Black Panther.
Well, Black Panther, I mean... But I mean, if you think about those 3 titles, you go, really, Ant-Man? And then you watch it, and you're completely blown away by this incredible creation that Kevin has sort of done. And it's because he's not afraid to take risks. You know, he's not afraid to push the boundaries of where Marvel can take their characters, of the types of characters they can bring to the screen. And that's why Black Panther was so incredible, because it was about goddamn time, you know? It was so...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about Ant-Man is that he came before Spider-Man in the comics, did you?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
It's crazy, and so did Groot.
So did Groot? I love
Groot came first. Yeah.
Love Groot.
Yeah,
But the only reason I came up here, I didn't mean to stay here. I just,
Good, dude.
we're doing this giveaway, right, of an amazing drawing done by Humberto Ramos.
That's beautiful.
I've signed it, he's signed it. Oh, there it is. And it's me dying. Someone will have an Ace Comic-Con sticker under their seat.
Oh, look under your seat. Ace Comic-Con sticker.
Wow, it's like an opposite standing ovation.
You must kneel before Loki.
Kneel.
Everyone is kneeling. Chewing gum doesn't count.
Thank you.
You got it?
Oh, he has it! Come on up!
Come on out.
I'll never get used to being on stage like this.
Isn't it great?
Do you know, sometimes when I'm working and I get really tired, I have anxiety dreams that I wake up in this scenario. I'm like, hi. Hello, sirs. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Here, come this way.
He sure is friendly. Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
There you go. Thanks very much. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Guy in a Boba Fett shirt. Awesome.
I guess...
Tom, don't go.
Stick around.
Don't
Stick around.
go.
Come on, don't go.
You don't want to go.
I don't want to go.
Let me ask you this. Walking around Comic-Con, one of my favorite things is looking at all the toys and the action figures. You know, when I was a kid, I loved Star Wars toys. That, for me, that was... I love the movies, but I love the toys more.
Yeah.
The movies I made in my head is why I became a Star Wars fan for life. And the Marvel toys were good. Now they're amazing. I'm wondering how you feel about your action figures, because I would imagine, you know, if I had an action figure of me, I'd be looking at me like, well, I don't know about that one. Have you had some that you like and some that you don't like?
It's weird for sure.
You have them all?
Have you had that thing where you have to approve your face?
Over in Mattel or?
You get sent like a grey image next to
Yeah.
a penny, I think it is.
Something like that, yeah.
It's a scale thing, and then you have to approve it. And the first few that they made of me were horrendous. So I thought we worked with them and we made it better. But it's weird because I have one in my living room, and I was sitting there watching TV the other day, and sort of like felt like it was watching me. I was like, this is so weird. So I've now sort of turned it away from the TV.
Just faces the wall.
Yeah.
How do you have any action figures yourself? If that's not too personal to ask.
No, I think I have they're not so much next to the TV.
I have loads.
You don't dust; they get webs. That makes it even better.
Actually, the joy of it has been about sort of about giving them away.
Yeah.
That's always fun. I went to a hospital in London recently. I'm sure you've done this, Tom, but they screened Infinity War for the children who were in hospital who hadn't been able to see it. And at the end, I handed out all these toys, and they loved it. But there was the funniest Q&A. Honestly, a 30-minute Q&A, which consisted of questions solely about facial hair. They were like, why, if you play Loki, why do you have a beard? Why does Captain America have a beard now?
No one's ever asked me.
It honestly was because there was a poster where I was doing it, and all the questions were about why the Avengers are bearded.
But you don't have a beard in the movie. They're talking about why do you have a beard in real life. Understood.
Yes, yeah.
They want to know why you didn't match yourself.
Yeah. Well, I always say he's a shapeshifter, so it's fine.
Exactly. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. The comedic timing with you and Chris, we talked a little bit about some of the line. I mean, I love the he's adopted line. And you and Downey, reindeer games. That's one of the greatest lines.
Oh, it's so good.
I don't know if that was an ad lib or if that was in the script, the reindeer games.
I think it was an ad lib, I think, yeah. A lot of it was in the script. But, Chris is a great comedian.
Yeah, and I don't think that people perceive that immediately, but he's certainly made a trademark out of it because he was really
he's always made me laugh.
Yeah.
Honestly.
He's so funny.
He's always been funny.
Yeah. He's a man who has it
but
all.
I think
he looks like he does, and he's funny. It's not fair.
But I think people forget the biggest laugh for me in the first film is he walks into a pet store and says, "I need a horse."
Yes.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
And the guy in the pet store says, "We've only got rabbits and birds and cats," and he says something. Well, give me one of those large enough to ride. Or when he throws the coffee mug down and demands another. Chris has got funny bones.
Yeah.
And he's just very playful. The energy on set's very playful, so we've always had a good time doing it.
And Tom, you made In the Heart of the Sea, based on a great book about the true story that inspired Moby Dick, inspired Herman Melville to write Moby Dick. And that must have been an arduous shoot on the water and...
Yeah, that one wasn't as fun because we were all on this crazy diet,
There's
losing
not a lot
weight.
of laughter.
Yeah, and the beginning of the film, we were all sort of requested to bulk up, which we all really enjoyed. And then, there was this really funny moment. We had a trainer, a great guy called David Kingsbury, who was training 21 of us for this film. And a few of the guys who were in the film were real sailors that they'd employed to sort of help us look like real sailors. And there was this one lovely guy, Italian guy called Luca, who was a shorter bloke, wasn't particularly in great shape, and we were training every day, training, and Luca goes to the trainer, he's like, "Why am I doing this?" And the trainer's like, "Because I want you to look like a real sailor, I want you to look really ripped." And he was like, "But I'm a sailor."
And then Hemsworth comes in,
And then
takes off his
Hemsworth
shirt.
comes in, and everyone puts their shirts back on.
It can be a bit much, but he's just a lovely guy.
Super lovely guy. Super, super lovely guy.
Yeah, and then Ron Howard directed that. It must have been a great experience for you as well.
Did anyone see Solo? Solo was hands down my favorite Star Wars movie. I thought it was just so unique, so different from any of the other previous movies, and I was just talking to Paul about it before I came out, and it was such a cool way to take that franchise,
Well, and one of the great things that you can see, one of the issues that anything in the Star Wars universe has is if it varies off the tradition, it doesn't live up to the tradition or even echo it, people get very kind of tense, to say the least. But again, with Marvel, there's been there's been more Marvel movies than there are Star Wars movies at this point, and they're defined by how different they are, which gives them a lot of room, because if you do the cookie cutter thing, after a while, it can kind of, if you're outside that cookie cutter, you're on the oven floor.
Yeah.
That doesn't go so well. So, for you, one of the others, Kong Skull Island, what was that experience
It was, the most extraordinary thing about that film was going to all the places we went. Was shooting in Vietnam, shooting in Australia, shooting in Hawaii. I'll never forget being taken up in a helicopter with no doors and flying out over the Pacific and back over Kahlua Valley where they shot the first Jurassic Park. And it was just a, I thought beats working for a living. It was a great day, yeah.
How did you do the sword fighting sequence? Where you're like slicing those... was there anything there, or was that... Because sometimes...
No, there was nothing there.
Yeah, because that's what I feel like an idiot when I do stuff like that. You
Oh,
know,
I
it looks
feel like
cool
an
in the
idiot.
movies, but when you just...
Yeah, I think I learned the choreography like on the
so
Sunday,
cool.
and we shot it on the Monday.
So cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, really, really cool.
You know what, guys? I have to tell you, this has been such an extraordinary weekend, and Seattle's been such a great town to visit. This is such a magical moment for the Marvel Universe. There's so many things coming together. The film that just came out was so extraordinary. And to sit here up here with you two guys, it's just been such a treat. I wanted to tell you both how great you've done.
What's happening?
And something's happening. And
Okay.
I just want to tell you both, thank you very much. Well, I think we're done. I think we're done. Now, there's,
We could do a few questions, why not?
I would
Nice questions.
love. We have no microphones out there, so it's
Thank you so much.
guys, ladies and gentlemen, Tom Hiddleston, Tom Holland.
Hey guys, listen, thank you so much for this weekend. It's been amazing. Meeting you all is always a pleasure, and we'll see you the next one.
Guys, thank